Hello there, and thank you for joining us. My name is Susannah Lawson, and I'm here to talk to the fascinating Alison Wem, who has just written this wonderful book, which I'm lucky enough to have an advance copy, Secrets of Your Soul, a story of past lives unveils wisdom beyond your wildest dreams. Alison, I'm delighted to be with you this evening and delighted to be able to read a copy of your book. And so it would be great to ask you a bit more about that. But what I wanted to ask you to begin with is that you didn't always work in this field. You weren't always a writer, a healer, a psychic medium, a teacher. You started off life in the corporate world. So how did you transition from one to the other? What led you to make that move?
Okay, well, I spent many years in the corporate world, and actually I was in the IT, so it couldn't be further different from the topic we're discussing in this book. So I was working for an international Spanish company who decided that their senior leaders should know each other to work better together. So they sent us to this wonderful place, El Escorial. It's in the hills just outside Madrid, and it's up because it's in the hills, it's cooler in the summer. And it's where the former kings of Spain are buried. There's a palace there and a monastery. It's a very spiritual place. So we had a 2-week course there, and the company that was teaching us was a very spiritual company, unbeknown to all of us when we went. They didn't use any of the spiritual words to scare off business people that didn't believe in this sort of thing, but it was still all the same practices and techniques. And the belief was that you couldn't lead people well unless you could lead yourself well. So the whole 2 weeks was a wonderful discovery of knowing yourself better. And the aim was to come out with a plan at the end to say, what are your next steps to be a better leader? And my soul was shouting at me, leave corporate life, follow your passion to help other people to lead healthier, happier lives. And that's what I did.
Goodness. So that was back in 2016, wasn't it?
Yes, it
And
was.
since then, you've written 2 books, haven't you? Creating Your Soul Map and Finding Your Soul Family. And you've launched a whole brand, haven't you? Finding Your Soul Family. And you have a website, I believe, and a Facebook group. And you work, amongst other things, as a psychic medium too, don't you? So
Yes,
you
I do.
obviously started this dialogue with your soul or with the spirit that helps you in your mediumship. So that must have been quite a revelation for you.
Yes, it was. When I learnt about being a psychic medium, it was never to be a professional one. It was about learning the language of spirit and learning to connect with your own soul, your guides. And it's been great for that. And I use that a lot in my sittings because they're a lot wiser than I am. So the information they can provide to a sitter is quality, the closer you can be to your guide.
And when you say a sitter, that means presumably somebody comes to you in the capacity as a client and wants to be able to talk to you about aspects of their life and have you help them make sense of that by connecting with the spirit guides that you have and sharing that wisdom with the people in front of you. Is that correct?
Yes, I feel actually we're talking to the individual's soul or guide. And it's almost like a guide to guide conversation, and I'm just the mouthpiece providing the human words, translating it from, I suppose, a telepathic or intuition language into English words.
And that's exactly what you've done with this book, isn't it? Because this is about the dialogue between you and a lady called Andrea, and you list the most incredible journey that she has been on in terms of multiple lifetimes over many, many centuries.
Yes. So Andrea and I met when we were first both young widows together. And she came and did my soul maps, which is the subject of my first 2 books, to try and help. Well, both of us, we did it together to help us overcome with widowhood and rebuild our lives. But what surprised both of us, for Andrea, these past lives just came tumbling out. wonderful descriptions. And my observation is she remembered a past life when there was a challenge in her current life, and there was either an experience or a skill in a previous life that could help her today. And I just took copious notes. But it was a very iterative process to create this book, because we had notes all about the past lives. And while Andrea was quite keen to go with just that to publication, but I didn't feel it was enough. So I then started to ask her, so what did you learn from those past lives? What exactly, you've got snippets. You don't remember a whole life, you just get key scenes in a life. And so we started to discuss that. What was she learning? And then the next question was, so how did that learning that your soul carries for you from life to life, how does that learning impact your life today? And what does it make you do differently with your family and your friends and people you interact with? And that's how the book blossomed. And the other thing we did together was we did lots of exploration. So we used to go and visit workshops and try all sorts of different techniques about connecting with spirit. And we had some good experiences and some not such good experiences. And we've shared that in the book to help other people. So there's like a simple model for people that are just starting out, or there may be slightly more complex models around the esoteric wisdom. So we've sort of done a taster for people to find what they want in the book for where they are today in their lives.
Yeah, and I think you do that so well. It's sort of fascinating because there's sort of multiple parts to this, isn't there? There is the sort of chronological guide to all of these lifetimes. And then there's a whole section more about the esoteric philosophy, the wider sort of ageless wisdom way of looking at multiple incarnations and how we all advance through those. And it's very practical, isn't it? Because you don't just talk about that. You then include lots of practical applications in the book as to, the so what. So what do I do with this? How do I take what I'm reading here and apply it to help me, say, access and apply my own wisdom, which I think is particularly useful to people because they really want to, it's how do you walk the talk, isn't it? How do you actually put this into practice, which I think you so beautifully capture here. So let me ask you, was there sort of a point, you've made this transition, you've obviously been a senior leader in the corporate world working in IT, suddenly you have quite a radical change of direction and you embrace these new skills guided by this sort of sense of connection that you have with your own spirit, soul and spirit guides. But was there a point where you really felt it all started to come together?
Well, funny enough for me, the pandemic seemed to facilitate that. So, I had built up a group of friends, other psychic mediums and healers and various disciplines in the period since I'd given up corporate life. And then we all dissipated to our homes. And, the lockdown happened and we thought, oh, what next? And we were all quiet for a while. And we all enjoyed it actually for a while because it slowed life. It was like a big pause button. And I think a lot of us became very introspective. But then I suddenly thought, I'm missing all my friends. What can I do about it? So I started a group chat on email. That's what we used to start with because we weren't aware of Zoom. And I think unwittingly, I combined my corporate skills, leadership skills, along with my psychic medium and healer skills, and they just came together. And I started to lead a group. We called it the Spiritual Retreat rather than lockdown. And we then moved to Zoom. We also took the thread of all our emails. So I started it and said how I felt, and then other people responded. And in the end, we put that into a book, Feeling Your Emotions. One of our group was a spirit artist, and she also was painting all the way through the lockdown because she was on her own. And you could see it going from the reds of her base chakra when it was all, ooh, what's all this mean? Are we going to survive? What's going to happen to me? And slowly it creeps up all the colours in her chakras until it's a wonderful purple where she's coming out of it all again. So we put that all into a book and it's available and free on my website, yoursoulfamily.com.
And then there's details also of your book, your latest book, and your other books on that website, aren't there?
Yes, there is indeed.
Great. And I think what's really interesting about this book is that you talk about in here that there are clues in our physical bodies, in our emotions that may hint at our own past lives, if only we acknowledge them. So for somebody who sort of, this might pique their interest and make them think, oh, well, I wonder whether this applies to me. Can you sort of just tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, what I'm feeling is that actually the pains in our body or our emotions can reflect things, residual whispers of experiences from past lives. And it's not surprising in a right-handed world, the left-hand side of our bodies often have a weakness or a pain. And if you can ask about that, you often find an answer. Or it could be in an emotion like claustrophobia. There's often a reason why you feel claustrophobic. And if you start to explore it and to acknowledge it, it's then easier to accept it and step over it. And just asking about it seems to start to dissipate it. That was my experience with myself and with Andrea.
And when you say ask, do you mean sort of go into a meditative state and do that, or have some introspection, give it some space and some thought?
Yes, I mean, people call meditation and they do visualizations. For me, the best sort of meditation is when you get into that very quiet space inside, almost in silence. And that's where you have the greatest clarity to ask questions and to receive answers. I always feel your intuition is really a bit like a radio transmitter and receiver. And it's how you feel. So it's about feeling what's going on. And you can actually say to your guide, why have I got this pain here? What should I be doing about it?
And
I mean,
then,
obviously, you should always consult doctors, but this is what you can do for yourself to help to improve your own life.
yeah, and we're probably not talking about something that's necessarily a medical issue, are we? It's more
No.
a feeling or a sense that connects to something deeper or greater than well, I suppose esoteric, isn't it? Sort of the hidden meaning behind it.
Mm.
Um, for you, is there a particularly the best part of this book that you've most enjoyed writing, or that you feel sort of stands out for you?
Well, the one that gave me a wow moment was when I was analysing the messages that Andrea had for each life. And what I noticed is some were about life lessons and learning something, but some were just about a comment on the path, the spiritual path of development. And it was things like, you're not alone, you're loved, you're always guided. And actually, what I did is I took the non-lesson comments out and put them in the chronological order with all her lives. And when I read it, I just thought, oh, wow. You know, we do lots of theory about what is the spiritual path. And these messages of encouragement to Andrea actually articulate really well what we as a human being with a soul experience as we develop.
So I imagine people could take great comfort from that if they were able to sort of tune in and be more aware of these messages.
Yes, well, when I read Andrea's messages, I felt comforted. It was lovely to read.
That's great. Let me ask you then, do you feel that there are key learnings or key elements or key understandings? I mean, you've talked about the fact you're not alone, or that feeling that you're always guided, but do you think for someone reading the Secrets of Your Soul, do you think there are key learnings or key understandings that you think would be particularly valuable for them to take away?
I think the description of Andrea's experiences actually provides a backdrop. What I like best, and I think it's and the reviewers, the early advanced readers also reflected, was at the back of the book, there's 7 very simple spiritual practices, which might be as simple as take 3 deep breaths before you reply to somebody that, you know, when it's a challenging situation. And when you do that, you actually come from a higher, your reply will be from a higher place. And I've done it automatically. Often people put their hand on their heart and it connects them with their intuition. So there's very simple things like that. Being part of the change that humanity is going through, just in your own simple way, by choosing the next set of higher life values to live by and using them with whoever you meet, whoever you influence. They are very simple. And I've had several people say, wow, they're so simple. They're so obvious, but easy to do in everyday life.
Well, I think obvious when you read them, but not obvious when you don't know them. But I love that. I think the idea that there are some simple things that all of us can do to bring the best of ourselves forward for the betterment of humanity. And you know, I think people sometimes think that's going to be a really grand thing, but it's just being kind to people, just thinking before you respond and trying to bring your highest, best self to bear. I think that's, if we could all just do that, what a better place the world would
It
be.
will make
Yes,
in the world.
absolutely. Andrea, I'm calling you Andrea because obviously we're talking so much about Andrea. Alison, I've really enjoyed talking to you. What are you next planning for this book? Because this hasn't actually officially launched yet. So if you could just tell me a bit about, I think there's advanced copies you can get for a special discount price on Amazon. And if you could just sort of tell me a little bit about that. People watching this maybe want to get hold of a copy. What's the best thing they could do? Or are there any events or live streams they can join?
Right, okay. Well, the 1st of September is the official launch date. And for that weekend, there's a special discounted price. The ebook is about a third of the price of a coffee at £1.25. The print books one is £6.99, which is discounted as well, go up to £9.99 in time. And there'll be a number of emails going out. So if you want to join in, just sign up on my website, yoursoulfamily.com. Also, there'll be posts on my Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is Your Soul Family. And I'm also doing a physical launch. I know it's a bit out of date and a bit, antiquated, but I think since the pandemic, people have missed seeing each other. So I'm doing a physical launch on the 7th of September. I don't know, I seem to like the number 7. That's at the chapel in the Brompton Cemetery Gardens in West London. Anybody who wants to come, very welcome. And we're talking now about maybe the following weekend, we should do sort of a virtual online sort of repeat of the product launch.
Because you'll be doing talks and things and answering questions, things like that, people that want to interact.
Well, the physical launch will have 3 chats from me, just 3 short chats and questions and answers. So maybe we'll get those recorded. It was really only been a very recent thought that for people not in the UK or not within easy reach of London, it would be quite a nice thing to do.
Great.
Let's watch this space, really.
Oh, well, look, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you and I wish you all the best for the launch. I'm very excited that I've got an advanced copy and I certainly intend to watch some of your online streaming, and I'm hoping to make it on the 7th in person if I can sort out a babysitter. But I hope we've shared some really interesting information with people. So I hope that's whetted some people's appetites. But again, head to your Facebook page, Your Soul Family, your website, yoursoulfamily.com, for more information and to sign up to get those emails with those live streams and other bits and pieces. So I wish you well and thank you so much for talking to me today. And I will look forward to reading more, referring more, and hearing what you do next.
Thank you very much, Susannah.
Thank you.